There's no franchise quite like Sonic the Hedgehog. For over 30 years, it's given us some of the most iconic games ever made, thanks to its unique high-speed platforming, large cast of fun characters, incredible music, and overall charm. The quality is a bit erratic, with some games being not so good to say the least, but even those are just so interesting to talk about. I don't know how to explain it, but when you really enjoy Sonic games, you're always going to be fascinated by them, no matter what. It's like an incurable disease. Is that normal? Do I need help? Don't answer that. If the answer isn't in a Sonic game, I don't care. I've been a massive fan of the series ever since I was 9 years old, and I'm so excited to share my thoughts on it. Because of the vast library of Sonic games, I'm going to have multiple retrospectives organized thematically, rather than discuss the series in a purely chronological order. I think it makes more sense this way. And it all starts at the very beginning, with, for lack of a better descriptor, the classic Sonic retrospective. Now, this doesn't include the spin-offs featuring this version of the character, or games where he's not the main focus. Rest assured, I'll discuss those at a later time. In this retrospective, we'll be covering classic Sonic's most important games, the original trilogy plus CD from the 90s, and then his revival in the late 2010s. The first one we'll be talking about is Sonic the Hedgehog on the Sega Genesis. But before we get into that, I'd appreciate it if you could subscribe. I really want to grow this channel, so clicking the button would help me out so much. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy the video. The year was 1990, and Sega was in a fierce competition with Nintendo as the two biggest gaming console companies, with the Sega Genesis and the Super Nintendo. Sega wanted a new mascot who could better compete against Nintendo's Mario than their current one, Alex Kidd, who I honestly forgot existed before making this video. Poor guy. The goal was to make an iconic character in the same league as Mickey Mouse. Sega tasked two people with creating the mascot and his game. Programmer Yuji Naka and character designer Naoto Oshima. Multiple designs were considered when creating the character, like a rabbit and an armadillo. But eventually Oshima settled on a blue hedgehog who could run fast. He was named Sonic to emphasize his speed. He was originally supposed to have a human girlfriend named Madonna and be in a band, but those ideas were scrapped. The team would grow to 7 people, and in 1991, it was released to massive success. Now, I was born in 2000, so the classic Sonic games weren't my introduction to the character. My first game in the series was Sonic Advance, which I got when I was like 5 or 6, so it was actually one of the first games I ever played. I liked it, but wasn't able to beat it back then. I played a little of Sonic Heroes at a family friend's house, and that was it as far as my exposure to Sonic games. But when I was 8 or 9, I discovered YouTubers like AntDude and Some Call Me Johnny who were playing games like Sonic 3 and Sonic Adventure 2, and then I wanted to try those games. I got the Sonic Mega Collection on the GameCube and started playing the series in order. I played Sonic 1 first, and it didn't really grab me. I liked Sonic 2 and 3 more, so I didn't revisit this game. Then in 2017, I downloaded the remake on iOS by Christian Whitehead or Taxman, and I really enjoyed it. I played this version so much, and I consider it to be the best way to play Sonic 1. There are so many ports of the classic Sonic games, and I thought hard about which ones to play for these reviews. Ultimately, I decided I'm going to play Sonic Origins Ultrafix, which is a mod for the PC version of the Sonic Origins collection that fixes a lot of issues I have with it. There are a few reasons I decided to do this. 1, I want to encourage buying these games from Sega rather than telling you to use a Genesis emulator. 2, most of my playtime with classic Sonic comes from the Taxman ports, which are the versions this collection is building off of. 3, this is the version I use when replaying these games. And 4, I love the new features like widescreen and the animated cutscenes. I'm not going to use the new options that affect gameplay to try and give a more authentic review of each game. In the next video, I'll talk more about these added features and my problems with the regular Origins collection. But now it's time to dive into the game. The story is Sonic is a super fast hedgehog who lives in South Island. He discovers that his animal friends have been trapped inside these dangerous robots. He learns the person responsible is a mad scientist named Dr. Ivor Robotnik, or Dr. Eggman as he's called in later games. So Sonic rushes after Eggman to free his friends, many of whom are trapped inside these robot generators at the end of each zone. It's a very simple story. The game is a 2D platformer centered around speed. Sonic can run quickly through levels, and he can increase his speed by going through loops or running down hills and rolling himself into a ball, which you do by holding down on the D-pad. It's exhilarating how fast you can go in this game. The goal is to always be moving quickly, but you can't do it all the time. Sometimes you need to slow down, or else you'll run face first into an enemy, and other times the levels have methodical platforming that require waiting in place for a bit. The levels have great replay value because that's when you have a better understanding of when you can go fast, since you already know what's coming. Another great part about replaying stages are the alternate paths. For example, in Green Hill Zone Act 2, there's one route where you keep going forward the whole time, but there's another path hidden to the left, behind these spikes, that takes you to a bottom area with different level design that also gives you access to some power-ups. The two routes eventually converge to the same point, but this feature gives the stages a lot of variety when you play them. It's very satisfying how I've played these games countless times, and I'm still finding routes I've never been through before. Usually you want to stick to the upper paths and levels that are harder to reach, but have more collectibles, are less dangerous, and are faster to go through. The game is played with just one button that makes Sonic jump in the air and curl into a ball that attacks enemies as long as he hits them. He can even bounce off them, which is pretty fun. Rolling also hurts enemies, so it's helpful to be in the ball form as much as possible if you suspect enemies are nearby. The controls being this simplistic was Yuji Naka's idea, and I think it helped a lot of people get into the game because it's so easy to understand. And playing as Sonic feels as smooth as butter. You always feel like you're in complete control of him, whether he's doing some regular platforming or going crazy fast. Yuji Naka is the GOAT. Oh. Hashtag legalize insider trading. Sonic 1 has a very unique approach to taking damage. There are these collectibles and stages called rings that Sonic is constantly grabbing. When you get hit, you lose all your rings, and a maximum of 20 scatter around you that can be picked up again before they despawn. As long as you have at least one ring, you can be comfortable. But when you have no rings and you get hit, Sonic dies and you lose a life. Unless you're playing the game on the Origins collection like me, which doesn't have lives, but you get the point. It's a very cool system that works well with the fast pacing, since you usually have to stop what you're doing to grab all your rings when you get hit, which makes you want to avoid taking damage even more than if Sonic just had a regular health bar. But that isn't the only thing rings do. If you collect 100 of them, you get an extra life, and they add up to a score bonus when you beat a stage. Beating the level quickly adds to the score as well. The last function of the rings is if you have 50 of them and reach the end of the level, a giant ring appears that you can jump into. This transports you to a special stage where Sonic falls and jumps through an area as the screen is constantly rotating around him. Completing one of these stages gives Sonic an item called a Chaos Emerald, and getting all of them unlocks the good ending. The emeralds don't change anything in the gameplay, but collecting them adds challenge to the game. Although not in the best way. I've never been a big fan of the special stages in Sonic 1. It's hard to process what's happening or feel like I'm in control because everything is moving very fast. You want to be very patient playing these, which is kind of ironic when you consider this game is about speed. All it takes is one little mistake, and you're helpless as Sonic is kicked out of the special stage because of these red bumpers that are called gold for some reason. The structure of the game is there are 6 zones to run through, with each of them containing 3 acts. But only Acts 1 and 2 let you access special stages at the end of them. That's because Act 3 ends with a boss fight instead of a goalpost. There are 6 Chaos Emeralds in the game, so you have a decent amount of chances to get them all. Unfortunately, this leads into my main issue with Sonic 1. The stages and the pacing. Some zones are fantastic, like the first and fifth ones, Green Hill and Starlight Zone. It feels great to run fast in these places and explore the different paths. There's a reason Green Hill Zone is one of the most iconic levels in all of gaming. It's a blast to play through. But other zones are much less exciting. The second one is Marble Zone, which is so much slower paced than Green Hill. There's a lot of waiting and regular platforming to do. And don't get me wrong, that's okay, but the speed is drastically reduced, and it just feels a bit out of place, especially coming off the rush that was Green Hill Zone. But that's nothing compared to Labyrinth Zone. This stage is infamous because the gimmick is you're underwater most of the time, and Sonic substantially slows down in water. So the stage is very, very slow paced, and it's not much fun to play through. It just doesn't feel like you're playing the same game. I should also point out that Sonic can drown underwater, which along with crushing in bottomless pits, will insta-kill him. So you need to make sure he takes in these air bubbles, or else this super ominous countdown will tick down until he dies. Jesus Christ, my bad. Originally, this was going to be the second level in the game, and thank God they moved it to the fourth, because that would have been some crazy whiplash after Green Hill Zone. The other stages I haven't mentioned yet are Spring Yard and Scrap Brain Zone. These levels strike a good balance between speed and platforming, especially depending on your skill level. They seem slow at first, but you can go fast in them once you know what you're doing. Although it is kind of suspicious how the last act of Scrap Brain is just a recolored Labyrinth Zone. Not a big fan of that. So the stages overall are good, but Marble and Labyrinth Zone hold them back from greatness. Returning to the pacing, if you're going for all the Chaos Emeralds, that slows down the game even more, since you need to beat at least 6 of the acts with 50 rings. And if you get hit near the end, sometimes there just aren't enough rings left to reach the special stage, and you're unable to go backwards for more. This meant I needed to play even more patient through levels, like Labyrinth Zone Act 1. Ugh, getting into the special stage here was not fun. You don't have to get the Chaos Emeralds, but it is encouraged that you go after them, so I think this is a fair criticism. The Origins collection lets you retry special stages in exchange for coins, but I stopped myself from using this feature to emulate the original game better. But I would definitely recommend using it, since the special stages are a little jank. Or just skip the Chaos Emeralds altogether. The graphics are great, especially for the time. The stages are vibrant and colorful, and I like how all the characters look. I appreciate all the personality in the sprites, like Eggman's constant smirking, or Sonic getting bored and judging you during his idle animation. And then there's the music, which is so good. You can always count on Sonic games to deliver some of the best video game music. I love the soundtracks in this series so much. In 2023, I went to the first Sonic Symphony concert in the US, which was in LA. Sonic 1 doesn't have my favorite soundtrack, but there are some superb songs here. I think Green Hill Zone's theme is my favorite, but I also really vibe with Starlight Zone's music. Every level has power-ups for Sonic to use. You'll find item boxes in the stages that contain an instant 10 rings, running shoes that temporarily increase your speed, a one-time use shield that protects you from dropping your rings, and temporary invincibility that also plays a catchy little song. It's always nice to pick these up. The boss fights are against Dr. Eggman, and you need to hit him 8 times to defeat him. Well, except in Labyrinth Zone, where it's just a chase against rising water and hazards. The fights are pretty simple, and before you know it, he's already defeated. The hardest one is definitely the final boss. I really like the idea behind it. You have no rings, and have to fight Eggman as 2 pistons try to crush you, one of which he's in. And then you have to dodge these energy balls that home in on you, so make sure to delay your run. It's not hard, but it's neat. Sonic takes down Eggman, and the day is saved. The Chaos Emeralds then fly away, with the mysterious 7th one joining in. More on that later. And that was Sonic the Hedgehog. I really like this game. It's so rewarding to blast through stages and explore their different paths. It's not perfect by any means, because some of the zones are a bit of a slog, and the special stages aren't great, but it's still fun. Especially if you play a modern version that gives you access to more characters and abilities for Sonic, which elevates the experience by adding even more replayability and speeding up the game more. Regardless, the original Sonic the Hedgehog is a classic, and I'd recommend playing it. It still holds up 30 years later. Sonic 1 sold extremely well. It helped Sega generate $1 billion in console sales. That is crazy. Sega had the iconic mascot they wanted, and they set out to make a sequel to their smash hit. In fact, they developed 2 sequels at the same time. These were Sonic 2 and Sonic CD. Sonic 2 was released first, but Sega has decided with Sonic Origins and the Sonic Symphony show that CD actually comes next in the timeline, so that's the game we're going to talk about now. I understand their reasoning, because there's a lot more in common between Sonic 1 and CD than there is between Sonic 1 and 2. CD was even conceived as a port of Sonic 1 before they decided to make a new title instead. Yuji Naka went to work on Sonic 2, while Naoto Oshima worked on CD as its director. The game was made to promote the Sega CD, an add-on for the Genesis that was more powerful and used discs instead of cartridges. The Sega CD didn't have many great games, and was kind of a flop. But Sonic CD has always been considered one of the few gems in its library. Speaking of gems, I first played the game on the Sonic Gems collection on the GameCube in December 2010. I didn't enjoy it much because the collision was janky and I thought the special stages were hard. Still, it was fun getting to play it, and it's easily the best game on this very weird collection. Seriously, the only other value I got out of owning this is if you have one friend who has a Sonic R hyperfixation. Oh my god, I'm gonna have to cover Sonic R at some point. 1 year later in December 2011, Taxman developed a remastered version of Sonic CD for the PS3 and Xbox 360. I remember begging my parents to let me buy this because it was only $5, and they finally relented. So I played the port and I was blown away. My issues with the original game were fixed, and it was now so much fun. I played this game all the time growing up on my PS3. It's one of the Sonic games I have the most experience with, and a personal favorite of mine. For this review, I'll be focusing on the Taxman port on the Origins collection, but like the last game, I won't be using the Sonic 2 Spin Dash or additional characters. However, the improved collision and special stages are fair game in my opinion. If that seems a bit arbitrary, I understand. I think it's fine though, especially because I imagine this is the version most people have played, since Sonic CD and the Gems Collection weren't the most popular games when they released, unlike Sonic 1. The plot is once a year, this place called Little Planet shows up, except this time Eggman anchors it and seeks to conquer it. Time travel is possible on the planet, and Eggman uses this to take control of its past and future. It's up to Sonic to stop him. Along the way, we meet some new characters. The first is Amy Rose, a pink hedgehog who likes tarot cards and falls in love with Sonic upon meeting him. But immediately after this, a robot copy of Sonic built by Eggman called Metal Sonic kidnaps her. So Sonic also has to rescue Amy now. It's cool how the series is already adding new characters. And Amy is my second favorite character in the whole series behind Sonic. I like how she flips the script of typical love interests by being the one who always pursues him, and he's too cool to care about dating. Sonic has some new abilities this time around. If you hold down and press the jump button, he charges up a move called the Spin Dash that gives him an instant burst of speed. This is a nice feature, but it takes a while to charge up, so I prefer using the other ability, the Super Peel Out. You activate this by holding up and jump, and it basically does the same thing as the Spin Dash, except it doesn't start Sonic in the ball form, but it's faster and looks cooler. Both are extremely useful to gain ground speed quickly, and I use them all the time. They feel like natural extensions to Sonic's movement options, and it makes Sonic 1 harder to go back to, because I'm just so used to spin dashing around everywhere. Sonic CD is structured identically to the last game, with each zone having 3 acts, and special stages being accessible at the ends of Acts 1 and 2, so long as you have 50 rings. This time around, the Act 3s only contain the boss fights that work a bit differently. You no longer have to hit Eggman 8 times. Instead, each battle has a gimmick, like running on a treadmill, or launching yourself up to hit him, like Sonic's the ball in a game of pinball. What sets CD apart from Sonic 1 are the levels themselves. Naoto Oshima wanted to focus more on platforming and exploration, rather than speed. Each stage has these signposts, labeled past and future. If you build up enough speed, sparks appear behind Sonic, that eventually let him time travel to those periods. The past and the future have some different level design, and are visually distinct from the present. They even have different music, which is a great touch. The reason you want to time travel is in the past there are these robot generators created by Dr. Eggman. If you destroy them, all the enemies in the past and the future are eliminated, and after you clear the goalpost, you're told Sonic made a good future. You can actually see this in the act if you go to the future after destroying the robot generator. By default, the future is gloomy with unsettling music because Eggman rules over it. But once the generator is destroyed, the future becomes more serene and joyful with animals roaming around free. And because the enemies are gone, getting into the special stages with 50 rings is much easier, which I appreciate. The third act of a zone is always in the future, and it'll only be a good one if you destroy the generators in the first 2 acts. If you want to obtain the good ending, you need to destroy all the robot generators in each of the 7 zones. If that sounds like too much work, there's thankfully another method. When you beat a special stage, Sonic receives a time stone. If you collect all 7 of them, every bad future becomes a good one, and you automatically get the good ending, even if you never destroyed a single robot generator. So you now have 2 methods to get the good ending. The way I play this game is a little weird. I call it the all good futures lazy route. This is where I destroy the robot generators, and I complete the special stages. Then when I have all the time stones, I just cut down on time traveling, because I already have the good ending. It's a little odd, because all the levels are really designed to be explored, so the second half of the playthrough, where I'm primarily running to the end, feels kinda wrong, but I love the special stages too much to not do them. They are such an improvement over Sonic 1. They're in 3D, and the objective is to destroy 6 UFOs before the time runs out. If you run into water, that speeds up the timer, so you want to avoid that. These are a thrill in the Taxman port, because while they can be a little chaotic with the UFO patterns, they still feel fair because the controls are solid. And if you play well, you should usually win, because a special UFO always appears when there are 20 seconds left that gives you an extra 30 seconds if you hit it. Special stages are some of my favorite parts of Sonic games, and these are some of the best in the series. Hunting for robot generators is also a blast. They're not that hard to find if you properly explore the stages, but the real challenge is getting to the past in the first place. You need to find level design that will give Sonic consistent speed to time travel, because if he slows down during the spark animation, you're not only stuck in the present, but you also lose the ability to get into the past or future until you find another signpost. Time traveling can be tricky, because the levels in Tenchi have more platforming and obstacles that block constant velocity. However, when you succeed and get Sonic into the past, it feels very satisfying because you earned that speed and are about to be rewarded for it. This is a much better way to make a Sonic game more centered on platforming than Marble and Labyrinth Zone, and it's so unique because no other game in the series plays like this. Oh, and I should mention that in the past, there are these projectors in Metal Sonic you can find and destroy. These don't affect anything, but it'll make you feel better before the robot uprising in 5 years. Wait, what? So with all the talk about the past, I guess you're wondering what's there to do in the future. The answer is not much. You almost always want to avoid future signposts, except in rare occasions where they can get you into the past. That happened to me in Tidal Tempest Act 1, where I missed the past signpost and couldn't figure out how to get back to it. But I saw that there were future signposts everywhere, so I traveled there, and it turns out that altered the level design, so I can now reach the past signpost. Well, after I traveled back to the present, because you can't go directly into the future from the past, or the past from the future. The stages in CD are all solid. Every level is fun to play through, and none feel out of place in a fast and exploration-based platformer. Even the obligatory water level Tidal Tempest is fun because you barely have to be in the water if you're good enough to stick to the upper path. That is good game design. The interesting thing about the exploration focus is you feel like you know more about the acts after beating them, since you sometimes have to backtrack for the robot generators or good areas of time travel, which means you explore more of the alternate routes on your first playthrough. Assuming you play the stages similarly to how I do, that is, and aren't just running straight to the goalpost the whole time. The graphics are an improvement over Sonic 1 thanks to the Sega CD superior hardware. You can mainly see this in the time travel animation and the 3D special stages. Man, these backgrounds are super trippy. And of course there are the animated cutscenes the Sega CD was able to render that are really fun to watch. The intro cutscene even has a vocal track. In fact, it has 2 of them. Sega's marketing team in the US wasn't a big fan of the game's soundtrack, so they made a separate one without the Japanese staff knowing. Today in the modern releases, you can select either the US or Japanese version. Both are good, but please, always select the Japanese soundtrack. This might be my favorite one in the whole series. It's phenomenal. Oh my god, the Quartz Quadrant theme is literally one of the best songs in all of gaming. And before you ask, as much as I like the English vocal track Sonic Boom, Sonic You Can Do Anything is better. Sorry, but I don't make good opinions. I only possess them. The last thing to mention is Sonic actually has some voice lines. This is notable because I'm pretty sure it's the only time Classic Sonic ever speaks in the games. At the end of the penultimate zone Stardust Speedway, you face off against Metal Sonic in a race that can be a little challenging since he can dash ahead of you. If he beats you to the end or you're too slow, you'll die. But thanks to the power of walls, Metal Sonic explodes and you free Amy. After defeating Eggman in an easy final battle, Sonic saves Amy from the collapsing base and Little Planet is freed from its anchor. It thanks Sonic and takes off. We're treated to a great ending cutscene, and that's it for Sonic CD. I love this game. I didn't have much to criticize because I think it's a blast the whole way through. It's such a unique experience in the pantheon of Sonic games, thanks to its incredible music, great levels and special stages, and an exploration focus that still rewards speed. There's a reason why I've played it so many times in my life, and I'm only going to keep coming back for more. It's one of Sonic's greatest games. Sonic the Hedgehog 2 is one of the most famous games in the whole Sonic series. Ever since it was first released, almost everyone who's a fan of 2D platformers considers it an incredible experience. But you may be wondering, does the game still hold up over 30 years later? Is it really one of Sonic's best games? Well, let's dive right in to figure out the answer. This game was greenlit after Sonic 1 was a massive success for Sega. The developers were given a deadline of 1992's holiday season. I forgot to mention this before, but the devs behind Sonic 1 were called Sonic Team. They would split up for the sequel, with Naoto Oshima working on Sonic CD, and others like Yuji Naka working on Sonic 2. One thing I find interesting is this game was actually made by both Japanese and American developers at the Sega Techno Institute, or STI, which was located in California. The head of STI was a man named Mark Cerny, who convinced Naka to work with his team after Naka quit Sega of Japan due to disagreements with the company. Sonic 2 had a complicated development. There were some cultural differences between the Japanese and American programmers in aspects such as work ethic. STI also had a lot of ideas for the sequel that didn't make the cut, like a time travel story or 5 whole zones that were axed because of memory limitations. And the developers only had 1 year to make the game, which does not sound very fun. But in the end, Sonic 2 was released, and it was another giant success for Sega. I first played the game in 2010 on the Sonic Mega Collection for the GameCube. I don't remember much from this playthrough, except that I liked it. I would replay it a couple times on the Wii Virtual Console, and then years later in 2017, I played the mobile port by Christian Whitehead and loved it. I don't have as much experience with this game as CD or 3 Knuckles, but I've always been a really big fan of Sonic 2, and let me explain why. The story in Sonic 2 is very simple. Dr. Eggman is back to capturing animals to power his robots, but this time he's also building a giant space station called the Death Egg. Wow, this guy is a massive narcissist. Who else makes a space station modeled directly after himself? Sonic rushes to stop Eggman again and saves this yellow fox along the way. Meet Miles Prower, a pun for miles per hour, which I appreciate as a fan of bad puns. He has the nickname Tails, which is what everyone calls him. Tails is Sonic's best friend and sidekick, the Robin to his Batman. He's a nice kid who looks up to Sonic and is really handy with technology. For some reason, Sonic has a plane called the Tornado, but it's mainly Tails who flies it. I always forget that Sonic actually owns it. Tails is a fun character with a cool design, but I can't say he's one of my personal favorite Sonic characters because I just like others more. Tails is a bit too timid for my liking, but he's a great addition to the cast. He runs after Sonic to join him in stopping Eggman and discovers along the way that he can actually fly. And that's the plot. The most obvious change to talk about in this game is Tails joins Sonic as either an AI companion, or he can be controlled by the second player, which is a really cool feature. I played alone for this review, so the AI Tails didn't do much besides get multiple hits on Dr. Eggman during the boss fights. Still, it's very impressive they were able to put 2 super speedy characters on screen together, even though Sonic outruns Tails a lot. You can also play as Sonic or Tails individually, which is what I usually do when I replay these games. In the original Sonic 2, when you use Tails, he plays identically to Sonic. I know he flies it when he respawns, but he can't use that ability when you play as him, which is a little disappointing, but oh well. There's also a versus mode where Sonic and Tails race each other through the level with split screens, but I played in single player, so I can't comment on this mode. Like CD, Sonic has access to the spin dash, but this version is much better. The charge feels almost instantaneous, and it's so satisfying to burst through stages with it. The sound effect is so crunchy. I love it. There's no super peel out, but I don't care because this version of the spin dash is the superior burst option. I use it all the time. It's a fantastic change, and it becomes a series staple after this. I would say the biggest difference between Sonic 2 and the previous games is its emphasis on speed. Almost every stage is now a roller coaster, a fast-paced platforming that makes for an exhilarating experience. You can see this in the levels that have a lot more slopes and loops than the previous games. It's like the devs realized Green Hill Zone was the most popular level from Sonic 1, so they structured the sequel around recreating that experience in almost every zone. There are still sections where you need to slow down, but the ratio is smartly more in favor of the speedy platforming this time. There's no stage in this game that's like Marble Zone, for example. Sonic 2 is actually so fast that it was the main game shown in a famous commercial for the Sega Genesis that bragged about it having blast processing. Whatever that means. Sonic and Tails still run through zones with multiple acts and fight Dr. Eggman at the end of them. However, this time each zone usually just has 2 acts, but in exchange, there are more zones than before. There's 11 total, nearly double the amount from Sonic 1. And I appreciate more variety in the levels, especially when they're this good. What makes the stages so great in Sonic 2 is the way they're designed. For example, Chemical Plant Zone is a great regular level. This stage is so fast, it's kind of breathtaking. I love exploring the level's different paths and racing to the end. Then we have a stage like Aquatic Ruin Zone. It's the game's water level, so it's gotta suck, right? Well, if you just hold forward the whole time, or miss the upper pathway, you'll eventually end up underwater, which is pretty slow. You're not there for long, but come on, who wants to be underwater in a Sonic game? However, if you're precise with your platforming and manage to stick to the upper path the whole time, you never have to touch the water in the game's water zone. That is an incredible way to reward good platforming. The whole game is intelligently designed like this, and it's why Sonic 2 is so revered. It has all the best features from Sonic 1, like the fast platforming and alternate routes, but it doesn't have the pacing issues that game had with some of its zones. Before we leave the topic of stages, I wanted to mention Casino Night Zone. From the title, you can tell the level is modeled after a casino, with pinball bumpers you can bounce off of, and a slot machine where you can earn rings. It's a very unique idea for a stage that works well with Sonic, and casino levels become a reoccurring trope after this. Special stages return, but this time you enter them for having 50 rings when you reach a checkpoint. Because every stage has multiple checkpoints, that means you have a lot more chances than before to obtain the Chaos Emeralds. In fact, you can get all of them in the very first zone, Emerald Hill, which is awesome, and it's what I did this playthrough. And it meant I could afford to play the game more recklessly, since I don't need to clear half the stages with 50 rings anymore. which I did, to mix results, but hey, it was fun. There are now 7 Chaos Emeralds, meaning you need to clear 7 special stages to obtain them all. And I'm happy to say these are very fun. Sonic and Tails run through a 3D half-pipe and have to collect a set amount of rings to keep going. The rings sometimes have weird placements, and there are bombs to dodge that take out 10 rings if you get hit by them, so the stages can be a little challenging. But I think these are very fair and enjoyable since you get rewarded for reacting quickly. And collecting all 7 Chaos Emeralds gives you a reward besides the good ending for the first time. When you have 50 rings and jump, Sonic will transform into Super Sonic, who is faster, has a higher jump height, and is invincible, so he just destroys stages. He also looks really cool in the process. His running animation is him hovering over the ground. How do you not love that? Being Super Sonic consumes a ring every second, so this isn't a permanent upgrade, but it's still super broken. So broken that I barely use Super Sonic anymore, because while it's fun, I like the extra challenge of beating the game with regular Sonic, but still collecting all the Chaos Emeralds because it feels good. I don't know, don't judge me. I should mention that the Taxman port improved some features related to the special stages and Super Sonic. Previously, entering a special stage reset your rings to 0, which meant you had to grind for them if you went for every emerald in the first zone. Now you just keep your rings, which is a great quality of life feature. More importantly, before jumping with 50 rings would instantly activate the supersonic transformation. Now you just have to jump and press the triangle button to enter the super form, which is much better because Supersonic has his own theme that is enjoyable, but I really don't want to listen to it in every zone. I know I said I would try to play these games as identically as possible to the originals, but these improvements are too good to pass up, and the Supersonic one makes the game harder for me, so I'm making an exception. Anyway, those are all the changes to the gameplay. As I'm sure you can tell, I think these were all for the better. The graphics are another improvement. Stages and backgrounds are more detailed than Sonic 1, especially the special stages that I know look better in the Taxman port, but even in the original game, they look great for 1992. And because it's a Sonic game, the soundtrack is superb. Every song is catchy and a delight to listen to. It's not on the same level as Sonic CD's Japanese soundtrack, but man, it's really good. My personal favorite tracks are Aquatic Ruin and Sky Chase. We've arrived at the endgame. We start off with Metropolis Zone, which for some reason is 3 acts, unlike every other level. And I have some small complaints with this zone. The enemy placement is pretty unfair. You get hit so much in this stage, even if you've played it countless times like I have. You won't die here, but let's just say Supersonic comes in clutch. I also didn't love Mystic Cave and Oil Ocean Zone with their enemy placements and gimmicks to throw in some small criticism for an otherwise amazing game. But after Metropolis, we reach the last 3 zones that are all just 1 act each. The first is Sky Chase Zone, which starts another tradition for the series with slow auto-scroller levels on the tornado. It's just 2 minutes here, and it makes sense as a calm before the storm, so I'm not going to complain, but it's a good bookmark for later games. Wing Fortress Zone has a heavy emphasis on platforming over a bottomless pit, but it's much easier than Metropolis, so it's kinda weird for me to think about it as the last regular level in the game. After defeating the boss, Robotnik escapes into space. Tails helps Sonic catch up in the tornado, and he holds on as Eggman flies into the Death Egg, the final zone. Like Sonic 1, you have no rings here, and I usually die a few times to the first boss, Eggman's evil robot, Silver Sonic. Not Metal Sonic, Silver Sonic. But after figuring out his pattern, he goes down. Sonic chases after Eggman, who somehow always outruns you, and he enters the Death Egg robot, the final boss. This is one of the harder final battles in the series, but it's not too bad. I beat him my first time here by just playing slow and only hitting him when I was sure his spike arms couldn't touch me. I know there's a way to get like 8 hits on him at the start of the fight, but whatever. After 12 hits, he goes down, and Sonic runs out as the Death Egg explodes. Tails notices this and rushes out to save Sonic. Unless you got the good ending like me, and Sonic just went super and didn't even need rescuing. But Tails is still there, so awkward. Maybe the bad ending where Tails actually saves Sonic makes for a better story. Oh well, that was Sonic 2. This game is a classic. The devs fixed the biggest issues from Sonic 1 and fine-tuned the formula, creating an incredibly well-designed and fast platformer with a ton of replayability. Aside from some stages I'm not the biggest fan of, I don't have much to complain about. It's extremely hard to choose, but I think I like it slightly more than CD, even though I have more nostalgia for that game, but both are masterpieces in my opinion. Sonic 2 is an incredible sequel. It's 32 years old, and it still holds up because it's almost perfect. Sonic 3 Knuckles. If you ask a bunch of Sonic fans what their favorite game in the series is, this one comes up often, and I can definitely see why. It's the Sonic game I've played the most because it's incredible. So without any further ado, let's discuss why I love it so much. After the success of Sonic 2, the Sega Techno Institute was tasked with making a sequel. Yuji Naka agreed to be part of the project if he was given more creative control and could primarily work with the Japanese staff at STI. He wanted to avoid the drama that came from developing Sonic 2 with American and Japanese developers. Sega agreed and promoted Naka to a producer on the project. He wanted Sonic 3 to be the biggest game so far in scope. It was decided early in development that there are too many zones planned and the game had to be split in half. So in 1994, Sonic the Hedgehog 3 came out, which contained 6 zones, and ended with Launch Base. Then 6 months later, Sonic & Knuckles was released, which contained the remaining 8 zones. But Sonic & Knuckles had a feature called Lock-On Technology, where if you connect the cartridges, you can play Sonic 3 and Knuckles, which combines both games and gives you the experience the developers intended. This is how most people, including myself, play this game. There are some differences that come from playing Sonic 3 and Sonic & Knuckles individually, but I won't cover them because these games were always meant to be played together. Playing them separately is like licking a game cartridge. Just don't do it. Returning to the development, the pop star Michael Jackson was a big Sonic fan and worked with Sega on the music in this game. We don't know a lot about this collaboration, but Jackson wound up leaving the project and is uncredited in the final game. But he certainly had an influence on the soundtrack. Like listen to Launch Base Zone. His music is definitely in the final product, but since his death, it's made re-releasing Sonic 3 trickier, which is why Sonic 1 and 2 are easier to access these days. I remember when I was a kid watching YouTube videos of the classic Sonic games, and I saw Sonic 3 for the first time. I knew immediately this was the Sonic game I wanted to play, so I bought the Sonic Mega Collection for the GameCube, and I was excited when I finally reached Sonic 3 Knuckles. And it lived up to my hype. I still have the memory of when 10-year-old me got all the emeralds for the first time. I was on Cloud 9 that day. I would replay Sonic 3 and Knuckles all the time when I was a kid, mainly on the Wii Virtual Console. It was so much fun, and I have more nostalgia for this game than any other I've talked about on this channel. I've always loved it. The story is after his defeat in Sonic 2, Eggman crashes into Angel Island, a floating island that is kept in the sky by the powerful Master Emerald. Eggman then meets a red echidna named Knuckles. He's the last of his people, and his mission is to protect the Master Emerald. Eggman tells him Sonic and Tails are the bad guys and tricks Knuckles into becoming his ally. Then when Sonic and Tails arrive on Angel Island, Knuckles ambushes Super Sonic and steals the Chaos Emeralds. It's now up to Sonic and Tails to stop Eggman from relaunching the Death Egg while recovering the Chaos Emeralds. Along the way, they must also deal with Knuckles making their lives harder during the in-game cutscenes. And that's the story. Knuckles will become a reoccurring character in the series after this, and I can see why. He has a very cool design and works well as a rival to Sonic. He's a total idiot for siding with Eggman, but that's fine. He's somehow strong enough to beat Super Sonic, so who needs intelligence, right? But in all seriousness, I really enjoy Knuckles as a character. The first thing you'll notice upon booting up Sonic 3 and K is there's a save system included for the first time, which is great. And it's here where you can select the 3 playable characters, Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles. Unlike Sonic 2, each of them have different abilities from each other when you double tap the A button. Sonic gets an attack called the Insta-Shield that expands his hitbox and lets you easily take out bosses and shield enemies, but he doesn't always have this move. Instead of the standard shield, there are 3 new elemental shields. The water shield lets Sonic bounce off the ground, but more importantly, it makes you immune to drowning. This is a godsend for the underwater sections, trust me. The flame shield gives him an aerial dash and makes him immune to fire. And my favorite is the electric shield that attracts rings towards you, makes Sonic immune to electricity, and gives him a double jump. Do I need to explain how useful a double jump is in a platformer? This is so great to have for exploring stages. All 3 elemental shields are some of the best power-ups in the series, and I wish they were in more games. They make Sonic my personal favorite character to play as. Knuckles and Tails can still use these shields, but they'll only get the elemental and damage protection. Tails can now fly when you play as him, and it's incredibly helpful if you're like me and are always trying to reach the upper path. He will eventually get tired and have to land, but you have so much time in the air that it's not a big deal. He can even hit enemies if you fly into them from down below. And Tails can swim underwater too. He's kind of broken. But the best thing about him is if you're playing with Sonic and Tails together and hold up before pressing jump, you can make the AI Tails fly off the ground and lift you with him. I used this feature so much when I was looking for special stages. I honestly might prefer to play this game with Sonic and Tails together because you can use both of their abilities. It's great. I don't like how Tails sometimes gets me killed in boss fights, but the flight makes it worth it. And then we have the newcomer Knuckles. He can glide in the air over stages, has a slightly shorter jump height, can break through barriers that Sonic and Tails can't, and can climb up any wall in the game, so like Tails, he's incredibly good for exploration. What makes Knuckles really stand out in this game is his playthrough is unique. It takes place after Sonic and Tails' story and features different areas in a lot of the stages designed for his abilities. He even has some different boss fights. I still prefer playing as Sonic, but I appreciate all the effort that went into playing as Knuckles and Tails in this game. Sonic 3 and K is another very fast-paced platformer. I wouldn't say it's as intense as Sonic 2, but it's very close. All the levels still emphasize speed, but this time exploration is more encouraged. This does mean that stages take longer, but I personally prefer this approach because it feels so satisfying to find new routes and secrets in the levels. I love exploring in this game. I don't even notice when I've been in a stage for 5 minutes because they're so fun. There's always so much to do, and the pacing is so quick that I'm rarely bored. I also want to mention how creative the stages are. Take the first level, Angel Island Zone. You think it's just going to be a standard grass level, but then 1 minute in, this robot sets the freaking jungle on fire. And then Eggman sends a bomber after you before the boss fight. This is kind of an intense first level. Another example is Marble Garden Zone, which has these spinning tops you need to ride to break through barriers, and in the second act, Eggman collapses the ruins, so you need to escape or else you'll be crushed. My personal favorite stage is Ice Cap Zone, which has a cool intro where Sonic rides on a snowboard, and its second act is a nonstop roller coaster if you stick to the upper pathway the whole time. It also has my favorite song in the game. It's so good. Every zone is still 2 acts, but now the first act ends with a mini-boss. These are fun to fight, especially when you know their patterns already and can kill them super quickly. Beating a mini-boss drops the signpost that you can bounce off the ground to score power-ups for Act 2. And when the first act is beaten, the game immediately transitions into Act 2 without cutting away. Then when you beat the zone, there's a transition explaining how Sonic gets to the next one, like hitching a ride on the flying battery. This is an awesome detail because it makes the world feel more interconnected and alive. It's also impressive when the acts 1 and 2 have different backgrounds from each other because it makes every level feel distinct. By the way, this is the best looking Sonic game so far. The stages, backgrounds, and characters look better than ever. It's impressive watching the ice caps move in the background or seeing the Death Egg stuck in the mountain at the end of Lava Reef Zone. And I love Sonic's sprite in this game. It's my favorite design for classic Sonic. The music is top notch too. Every track is a banger. I still have Lava Reef's theme stuck in my head, and I'm okay with that. Checkpoints no longer send you to special stages, but depending on how many rings you have, you can get taken to 3 different bonus games that give you a chance at getting more rings, power-ups, or extra lives. These are fun minigames, and they're also helpful if you need a specific elemental shield at that moment. I used to just play these games for fun when I was younger and try to get as many extra lives as I could. The main reason I've talked so much about exploration is that's how you reach the special stages in Sonic 3 and K. Hidden in the levels are giant rings that take you to Blue Spear stages. These are awesome. Sonic is constantly moving around a 3D grid, and you can turn him to the left or right and jump around. The goal is to collect every blue spear in the stage and avoid the red spears that end the game. Collecting a blue spear turns it into a red spear, with one notable exception. If you see blue spears in a big cluster and collect every one of them on the outside, it automatically collects every spear in the cluster and turns them into rings. And if you collect every ring in the special stage, you get a perfect bonus that gives you a continue. As you spend more time in these stages, the speed and music accelerate, which makes things very scary. It's been a while since I played this game, so I forgot how challenging the special stages are. You have to react very quickly, or else you'll lose in a second. And if you get lost, things only get harder for you with the faster speed. I actually failed 2 of these stages, but that only made my eventual victories that much more impactful. I love the Blue Sphere stages, and I'm usually pretty good at them. I can even get perfects in all the ones from Sonic 3 if I really focus. Collecting all 7 Chaos Star modes gives you access to Super Sonic and Super Knuckles. However, in the original Sonic 3 and K, the Chaos Star modes do nothing for Tails, so sucks to be you, buddy. And if you find a giant ring afterwards, you aren't taken to a special stage, but you do get 50 rings, so there's a benefit if you're still looking for them. Once you reach the Sonic 3 half of the game, you reach Mushroom Hill Zone, and you'll see that the giant rings are now a different color. Entering them takes you to Hidden Palace Zone, and your Chaos Emeralds combine with the power of the Master Mode to become Super Emeralds. You now need to complete 7 more special stages to obtain these Super Emeralds. You can do them in any order you choose, so I like starting with the ones on the right that are the hardest in the game. I have failed the last special stage too many times in my life to save it for the end at this point. Once you obtain all 7 Super Emeralds, you get access to Hypersonic. Or Seizure Sonic, because Jesus Christ, he is an eyesore. Hypersonic is pretty awesome aside from that though. He has all of Supersonic's abilities, plus he can dash in any direction, so he kinda has all 3 powers from the elemental shields. His dash also kills every enemy on screen. The Super Emeralds unlock Hyper Knuckles, who can also kill every enemy on screen if he glides into a wall. Both Hypersonic and Hyper Knuckles are so fast that they leave behind after images too. Last but definitely not least, the Super Emeralds unlock Super Tails. This transformation is not okay. He summons an army of flickies that just murder bosses automatically, like I'm not even moving. Tails is an 8-year-old who could rule the universe and he chooses not to. What a guy. Remember how I said Sonic and Knuckles can lock onto Sonic 3? Well, this feature works with other games too. If you connect it to Sonic 2, you get Knuckles in Sonic 2, where you can play through that whole game with everyone's favorite echidna. This must have been mind-blowing in 1994, because it's basically DLC, a decade before that even existed. If you connect Sonic and Knuckles to any other Genesis game, that unlocks Blue Sphere, where you play more of the special stages from Sonic 3, which is pretty fun. Nowadays in Sonic Origins, you can access Blue Sphere from the sound test mode. Oh wait, I never mentioned the sound test. This is a feature in all the classic Sonic games that you can enter by inputting a cheat code on the start screen. You can play music here, but its main purpose is as a stage select screen. Before I wrap up Sonic 3 and K, I think now is a good time to discuss the aforementioned Sonic Origins collection. Not the mod of it I've been playing, the official release. Origins adds a lot of great features to the classic Sonic games that were originally exclusive to the Taxman ports. Most notably in every title, you can now play as Tails and Knuckles, who have their abilities from Sonic 3 and K. There's also a boss rush and mission mode you can play. My favorite addition are the animated cutscenes at the beginning and end of each game. These are really charming. Oh, and the scrapped hidden Palace Zone in Sonic 2 is now playable. If you spend $10 extra, you get access to Sonic Origins Plus, which expands the collection by letting you play all the Game Gear games. However, the biggest draw of the expansion is you can now play as Amy in all the main games. She plays the same as Sonic, except she can spin her hammer in the air, so it's basically a constant insta-shield. She can also use it when she's running on the ground. Playing as her doesn't feel that different to be honest, but I love Amy and I'm happy she was added. She even has her own super and hyper transformations. Other nice features included in the collection are a gallery, widescreen for every game, lives have been removed, and you can replay special stages if you fail them in exchange for coins that can be earned. So with all these great features, why don't I love this collection? Well, there's a lot of small issues if you're a massive Sonic fan like me, namely buggy collision and glitches that slightly screw up the experience. Take for example Marble Garden Zone Act 1. The stage is supposed to open with you crashing into this wall and picking up the electric shield. But the physics in Origins aren't 100% accurate, so you have to spend a couple seconds getting the shield yourself. I know this is a minor criticism, but there's hundreds of these instances in the game, and they add up. Another complaint is there's a feature from Sonic Mania included in the collection called the Drop Dash that's a spin dash you can trigger in the air. I was really excited to use it in these games, but for some reason, you don't start at top speed with a drop dash, so it feels very slow. You're better off just using the spin dash, which I think is really disappointing. Lastly, there were rights issues with the Sonic 3 soundtrack, so we're left with the music from the prototype, which isn't bad, but it's nowhere near as good as the original score. I had my worst experience ever playing Sonic 3 and K on the original Origins collection because it just feels wrong with this music. I know Origins was rushed, probably to coincide with the second Sonic movie, and it shows. It's not horrible or anything, but I would highly recommend getting the Ultra Fix mod, which fixes all these issues and gives you the best possible experience. Anyway, those are my thoughts on Sonic Origins, so let's return to Sonic 3 and Knuckles. At the end of the adventure, we reach Hidden Palace Zone, where Sonic and Knuckles finally have their duel. Knuckles loses, and suddenly the palace starts shaking. Eggman is stealing the Master Mode, and everyone's helpless to stop it. Knuckles realizes he got played, and helps Sonic and Tails reach Sky Sanctuary. They watch as the Death Egg ascends into space, and the only thing they can do is try to catch up. In this zone, we face off against enemies called Egg Robos and Mecha Sonic, another evil robot copy of Sonic, who is not Metal Sonic for some reason. I like how this level reuses bosses from Sonic 1 and 2 as mini-bosses. It's a neat callback. After beating Mecha Sonic, Sky Sanctuary starts collapsing, and Sonic and Tails rush to the apex to jump into the final level, Death Egg Zone. This area is a full stage this time, and it's the hardest in the game. You got bottomless pits, anti-gravity, spikes, a tough mini-boss. It's a very climactic final zone that usually kills me a few times. The final boss can be difficult, especially if you die, because then you have to fight him without rings. I usually lose at least once here, but it's not hard if you know the visual cue for when the second phase is going to fire its laser. The next phase sees Eggman try to escape with the Master Emerald, but Sonic and Tails defeat him. Now we reach Doomsday Zone, which can only be accessed if you have all the Super Emeralds because it involves Hypersonic chasing after Dr. Eggman. I really like the idea that the true final boss is a reward for getting all the emeralds, and Sega agrees because this becomes a pattern in future games. You need to beat Eggman before running out of rings, so be sure to stockpile as many as possible and you'll be fine. Sonic defeats Eggman and saves the Master Emerald. Tails and him return the Master Emerald to Knuckles, and Angel Island is at peace again. Next is Knuckles' story, which is very simple. He chases an egg robo through all the zones until he reaches Sky Sanctuary, where we discover that Mechasonic has the Master Emerald. He fights Knuckles as Angel Island falls out of the sky in the background. The last phase sees Mechasonic get a power increase by absorbing the Emerald's energy. Knuckles wins the fight, but Sky Sanctuary collapses again. Then in the nick of time, Sonic saves Knuckles and the Emerald, so Angel Island is saved again. And that was Sonic 3 and Knuckles. This game is amazing. Every level is a blast to explore and race through, the special stages are awesome, the music is phenomenal, and there's 3 playable characters who are all fun. It's like Sonic 2, except there's more incredible content and great new ideas here. It's the ultimate Sonic game. It's one of the greatest games I've ever played, and that's why I keep coming back to it. For the longest time, this was my favorite game in the whole series. It doesn't hold that title anymore, but it's definitely number 2 on my list. Everyone has their favorite games. The kind of games so spectacular they can brighten your day and maybe even change your life. It's funny how a bunch of pixels on a screen can have such a profound impact on us. And I strongly feel this way with Sonic Mania. It's my favorite Sonic game ever, and one of, if not, the greatest game I've ever played. Let me explain why. After Sonic 3 and Knuckles was released in 1994, Sega's top priority was getting Sonic into the third dimension. That was all the rage in the mid-90s, with consoles like the N64 and PlayStation. Sonic would make his 3D debut in 1998 with the release of Sonic Adventure on the Sega Dreamcast. This game put the series on a new path going forward. Besides the gameplay evolving, all the main characters would receive redesigns. And for the next 13 years, every main Sonic game was in 3D and used the new character designs. There were still 2D Sonic games released on handheld in the 2000s, like the Sonic Advance trilogy. But those used the new models, and only the first game feels similar to the original games on the Genesis. In 2010, we technically got a sequel to Sonic 3 and Knuckles called Sonic 4, but it's really a follow-up in name only. Please don't make me talk about Sonic 4 any more than that. Let's just move on. In 2011, the original Sonic returned in Sonic Generations, a game where he teams up with his modern counterpart. Generations was a massive success with fans and critics alike. It was the most well-received Sonic game in years. I should mention that in the early 2010s, nostalgia for classic Sonic was at an all-time high. Fans of the Genesis games missed that gameplay style and talked about it on the internet a lot. And I got into the series from these people, and now I'm talking about these games. I guess time really is just a big circle. Some Sonic fans even started making their own fan games. Enter Christian Whitehead, who made the fan game Retro Sonic and created his own physics engine that recreated how the Genesis games played. The IQ scores of some Sonic fans are pretty high because that is wild. Sonic Team couldn't even do that in Generations. Sega contracted Whitehead to make the stellar Sonic 1, 2, and CD mobile ports we discussed earlier. While working on these, Whitehead created a prototype for a new game in this style called Sonic Discovery, which he presented to series producer Takashi Iizuka. Iizuka liked what he saw, and Sonic Mania was greenlit. Whitehead was assisted by the company's Headcanon and Pagoda West. People from these companies also had experience with Sonic fan games, like the composer T. Lopes. Mania was made by the fans for the fans, and it was released in 2017 to celebrate the series' 25th anniversary. I remember being shocked when I saw the announcement for this game. I don't think anyone thought we would ever see an official Sonic game that looked and played exactly like Sonic 3 again, and it was made by the fan community. It was a dream come true. By 2017, I was already a diehard fan of the series, and I was so excited to play this game. And it absolutely did not disappoint. The story sees Sonic and Tails return to Angel Island to investigate a powerful gem called the Phantom Ruby. However, a group of egg robos have located it first, and space-time warps when they try to grab it. Sonic and Tails are sent back to Green Hill Zone, where they fight Dr. Eggman. After beating him, we find that the Ruby has transformed the egg robos into the hard-boiled heavies who rebel against Eggman. Robotnik takes the Ruby and sends Sonic and Tails to Chemical Plant Zone. From here, they have to fight Eggman and the hard-boiled heavies to save the day again. By the way, I love the idea of the hard-boiled heavies. A bunch of egg robos that get transformed into unique characters and rebel against Eggman is a fun idea. Like 3 and K, you can play as Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles. Tails and Knuckles play the exact same as before, with their abilities to fly and glide through the air. Knuckles still has his own routes through levels, although there are less of them than before. The most notable one is his version of Mirage Saloon Act 1 is exclusive to his playthrough, with it being a standard platforming stage, while it's primarily a tornado level for the other characters. Sonic also plays the same as 3 and K, except the insta-shield is gone. Instead, Sonic has access to the drop dash, a spin dash he charges in the air that goes off as soon as he lands. I love this move. Every character can run fast in this game, but the sense of speed with Sonic is now absolutely addicting. Sometimes he just never has to stop moving because you can chain drop dashes into each other. He feels incredibly fluid to play as, which makes the gameplay even better than before. The elemental shields return with their unique abilities for Sonic, along with the other power-ups we're used to. One that wasn't in the previous games is called the Combine Ring, where if you take damage, all your rings are dropped in the form of giant rings. There are less of these to grab, and collecting them all restores your rings to their max value instead of the default 20 rings. I thought this was a new power-up at first, but it actually originated from the obscure spin-off game on the Sega 32X, Knuckles Chaotix. The special stages are still accessed from giant rings hidden in the levels, and I adore how they look in this game. I'm such a sucker for low polygon models in modern games. The special stages are a fusion between the ones in CD and the ones in 3 and K. You're in a 3D space where you're always running after a UFO holding the Chaos Emerald. You collect blue spears and rings along the way. The blue spears fill up a meter, representing your Mach speed. You can go up to Mach 3, where your character runs very fast, so it's easier for them to catch the UFO. The downside to being that quick is it's harder to control yourself, so you're more likely to fall off the level, which instantly ends the special stage. The rings are basically a time limit, where you're constantly losing them, and you need to keep collecting the ones in your path, because if you run out of them, you also fail the special stage. I absolutely love playing these. Every few seconds when I collect blue spears and rings, jump over a bottomless pit, or see myself getting closer and closer to the UFO is so exciting. Then when I see Sonic get the Chaos Emerald, I feel amazing. And the Sega Saturn Sonic aesthetic here rules. It's so hard to decide my favorite special stages in the series between CD, 3 and K, and Mania, but I'm gonna give it to the ones here. They're definitely on the easy side, but I mainly play these games to relax and have fun, so that's completely fine by me. Whenever I replay this game, I am on cloud 9 in these stages. Collecting all the Chaos Emeralds once again grants every character their cool super form. This was the first game where you activate these by pressing the triangle button in the air, which was a great change. Most of the zones in Mania are from the previous games. We have Green Hell from Sonic 1, Stardust Speedway and Metallic Madness from CD, Chemical Plant and Oil Ocean from Sonic 2, and Flying Battery, Hydro City, and Lava Reef from Sonic 3 and K. But despite reusing stages, the levels have been altered quite a bit. The way it usually works is the first act is essentially a remix of the zone, and then the second act introduces new mechanics and level design that expand on the original stages and makes playing them feel unique. Chemical Plant is a great example of this, where the first act is very similar to Sonic 2. But then the next act introduces a mechanic where you jump on these syringes to change the color of chemicals, so you can bounce on them to progress in the level. Or how about a zone like Metallic Madness? It feels very different from the original on CD, with the level design being more conducive to fast platforming, and these great gimmicks of being teleported into the background and being shrunk by a laser into a cute mini Sonic. The shrinking laser was in CD, but you now spend more time in this form, like in the Eggman battle, where you also fight little robot Amy's and Eggmans. Even though we've seen these stages before, the new ideas make them stand out. And not every zone is from the past. 5 of the 13 zones are new, and they're all fantastic. There's so many creative ideas on display here, like Studiopolis taking place in a studio, where you're lifted into the air by director chairs, see advertisements for Egg TV on a giant screen, and run past applause signs. Or Mirage Saloon, that's themed after the Wild West, so Sonic is getting shot out of giant guns and spinning on bar stools. And playing every stage is a treat because there's a perfect blend of speed, platforming, and exploration. My favorite thing to do in Mania is search the levels. Even after I get all the emeralds, I still enjoy looking for giant rings because I swear, every playthrough I find one I've never seen before despite how many times I've played this game. Like 3 and K, the levels are so brilliantly designed that it feels like there's so much to do and explore, and yet they never feel long because of how much fun I'm having. Speaking as a Sonic fan, you can tell there's so much reverence for the series in this game. Obviously, the stages and mechanics call back to the Genesis titles, but there's so many obscure references that I love. Like when you have to fight Dr. Eggman in Chemical Plant Zone, and the battle is a puzzle game because it's referencing Dr. Robotnik's mean beam machine. Or the Mirage Saloon boss, who transforms into forgotten characters like Fang the Sniper and Bark the Polar Bear. Bark the Polar Bear, who has only ever been in Sonic the Fighters. Wow. There's a myriad of other references to the Game Gear games and other spin-offs, but you get the point. Mania is a true celebration of classic Sonic, and that makes the game even better for me. Act 1s once again end with the mini-boss, and then you fight Eggman or a hard-boiled heavy at the end of Act 2. These are good fights, and some of them are really creative, like using the Eggmobile against Robotnik in Hydro City, or the freaking Death Egg robot attacking you in Green Hill Zone. What the hell? When you reach a checkpoint with at least 25 rings, you're taken to a bonus stage. It's here where you play Blue Spears from Sonic 3 and K, and I love Blue Spears, so these are a blast. There's 32 of these maps, and once you've completed them all with perfect bonuses, you get gold medallions that unlock a Blue Spears mode in the extras menu, featuring even more stages to play on. Unfortunately, I don't play these much anymore. That's because if you own Sonic Mania Plus and have all the gold medallions, when you enter a bonus stage, you'll instead be taken to a pinball stage where you can earn power-ups. These are helpful when I need a specific elemental shield, but I do miss playing the Blue Spears in regular gameplay. I can't even replay the ones where I have the gold medallions without resetting all my data, so this footage has been from the extras menu. But that's a very small complaint. Since I just mentioned Sonic Mania Plus, the main feature added with the DLC is Encore Mode. You start off in a short Angel Island section and free the characters Mighty the Armadillo and Ray the Flying Squirrel, two incredibly obscure characters. Ray was only in a Japanese exclusive arcade game. At least Mighty got to be in Knuckles Chaotix. In Encore Mode, two characters are teamed together, and you can swap between them by pressing the triangle button. You can find the other characters in item boxes, and they function as your lives in each zone. To use the characters in reserve, you either need to find an item box that swaps the lead with whoever's next, find a randomizer item box, or die. What makes Mighty unique is he has a bounce attack and can safely land on spikes once because he's an armadillo. Ray can fly in the air, and it handles very closely to the cape from Super Mario World. Both are fun to use, but Ray is definitely my favorite because flight is really broken in these games. They get access to super forms too, in case you were wondering. Other than the team mechanic, this mode isn't that different from the main campaign. I appreciate the new look of the zones, but the levels are mostly the same. The big change to the level design is many of the giant rings are in new locations, so you need to explore the stages more than before. When you reach the special stages, you'll see they're brand new and more challenging. I almost never fail any of the original 7 stages, but the ones in Encore Mode are a different beast. They're very precise and much less forgiving. When I play these, I am locked in and terrified the whole time, and I still lose often. The last stage in particular is a demon. I failed it 4 times. These are the hardest special stages I've discussed so far, but they're still great because of the immense satisfaction I feel when beating them. Especially Special Stage 7. My pop-off was legendary. I would say collecting the emeralds is the main appeal of Encore Mode for me. Playing as every character is neat too, but I play this mode when I'm in the mood for a challenge. My advice if you want to try this out is make Tails your main character. It's very helpful to get to the upper pathway ASAP to look for the giant rings, because I don't know where they are, and realistically I need to find like 12 of them to get every emerald. And it does feel awesome discovering them. If you like exploration and special stages, I'd recommend this mode, but other than that, it's basically just the base game with the option to change characters. Other features in this game include a sound test, a mode where you play even more Mean Beam Machine, and options like using the Super Peel Out, or my personal favorite, and Knuckles mode. It's the same game, but you play with Knuckles as your sidekick. Hell yeah. And yes, this still works even if you select Knuckles as the main character. This is the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life. The visuals in Mania are stellar. I'm a fan of games like this with a retro art style, and Mania looks incredible for what it's going for. The backgrounds are so pretty and detailed, like in Press Garden Act 2. All the sprites look great, and I love the extra animation frames they've added. It makes the game look smooth. And the characters have so much charm too. Mania is a very cute game. You can see even more of this in the phenomenal animated cutscenes and the Sonic Mania Adventures series on YouTube. As you can expect, the soundtrack is very good. T. Lopes does a great job remixing the original stage music, but I think he really shines when he gets to create his own. Press Garden and Mirage Saloon are my favorite tracks, but I think Studiopolis is going to be burned into my brain forever. The biggest criticism I hear about this game are the reused stages and level designs. I understand why someone would feel this way because it is true to an extent. I do get deja vu when playing some stages. especially this playthrough because I just beat Sonic 3. But remember what I said earlier, that the past zones have new mechanics that make them feel fresh? And there are new stages and ideas in Mania, so I'm not bothered by this game reusing levels. Well, except for Lava Reef. This is the one place where I think the devs couldn't come up with a new idea or distinct level design, so it just feels like Sonic 3 and K again, and it's a bit lame. Let's discuss the endgame. We learn Eggman is control of Little Planet again. So every character travels to Titanic Monarch Zone for the final face-off. Titanic Monarch is a decent last level. These typically aren't the highlights of Sonic games because they're usually slower paced to be more challenging, so I wouldn't say I love this zone, but it's still enjoyable. The final boss is interesting because Eggman has 4 health bars, 1 for each arm. In the meantime, you need to survive against the Phantom Heavies when he sends you to them. Eggman goes down, but the Phantom Ruby activates, teleporting Sonic to Egg Reverie Zone. Here the Heavy King takes control of the Phantom Ruby and clashes with Eggman, who wants it for himself. Sonic still has the Chaos Emeralds, so he goes super and has to defeat both of them. This fight can be difficult because you don't get that many rings, and the Heavy King with the Phantom Ruby can actually damage Super Sonic. I'd recommend fighting him on the ground, and you should be fine. Eggman in comparison is a joke in this fight. Sonic is able to knock the Ruby out of Eggman's possession, but this creates a wormhole that sucks him up. But Eggman's base is destroyed, Little Planet is freed, and Sonic will be okay. Well, he'll be in Sonic Forces, so maybe not. I don't know, I haven't played that game in so long. Now that we've discussed everything else about Mania, I want to talk about why it's so important to me. When I was growing up, I loved the classic Sonic games, but my experience with them wasn't 100% authentic because I watched other people play them first. Of course, that's why I played them in the first place, but as I got older, I wished I could have a fresh experience with them. And Mania gave me what I wanted. The first day I downloaded this game on Steam, I beat it 3 times in that short span alone. I had so much fun playing Mania, and it became comforting to me. It came out towards the end of high school, when I didn't have much of a social life, and it really helped me get through that period. I can't even count how many times I've played it. It's one of those experiences that was so salient to me as a young adult that I remember I was playing Oil Ocean Zone when I got my college acceptance letter. I really like when I have positive memories associated with media. It attaches a layer of nostalgia onto it, which is ironic when this game is already inherently nostalgic. Mania has a personal attachment to me, in addition to being an amazing game to play. I don't have much to criticize since I'm personally not bothered by the past zones. Are there objectively better games? Definitely. I don't even know if I can argue Mania is a better game than Sonic 3 and K, only using logic. But a discussion like the best game ever is very subjective since everyone likes different kinds of games. I'm sure tons of people will call Elden Ring the best game ever, but I don't have an interest in playing something like that, so it would never make my list. I love Sonic games, and Mania is my favorite in the series, which is why I think it's one of the best games ever. It's incredibly fun with the speed, exploration, charm, special stages, and the clear passion the devs had for Sonic the Hedgehog. Mania is a fan-fueled tribute to classic Sonic and his history that also pushes the series forward, and I think that's spectacular. I never expected a classic Sonic game to be divisive, but here we are with Sonic Superstars. Depending on who you ask, one person might really enjoy this game, and someone else might dislike it. Don't get me wrong, it's far from the most controversial Sonic game, but it's still surprising to me since classic Sonic titles are generally very consistent in quality. All this begs the question of if I enjoyed Superstars or not. The answer is mostly yes, but it has big problems I can't ignore. After Sonic Mania was released, everyone was excited about Whitehead's team making a sequel that could have more of its own identity. This was the plan at first, but things sadly didn't work out, so the Mania devs left the project to create their own game, Penny's Big Breakaway, that I would recommend playing if you like platformers. It's a good time. During the COVID pandemic in Japan, Sonic's team had Takashi Iizuka and Sonic's co-creator, Naoto Oshima, played a drinking game on Zoom for fun. While they were doing this, they talked about how they wanted to make a 2D Sonic game together, and that's how Sonic Superstars was born. It was mainly developed by Arzest, a company Oshima founded since leaving Sega decades ago. Sonic Team and Iizuka were also involved in the process. Oshima hasn't worked on a main game in the series since Sonic Adventure, so I think it's awesome he was able to come back to the massive franchise he created 3 decades ago. Superstars was announced in the summer of 2023, and I was really excited for it. Sonic Mania came out 6 years ago, and I had been waiting for a sequel for so long, I figured it wasn't happening. But here it was, as bright as day. And it was going to be an original adventure with classic Sonic that looked really good. A fun promo video was released that I enjoyed, and when I went to the Sonic Symphony in LA that year, they actually played the game's opening like a month early for those in attendance, which was awesome. And this was the same weekend where the Sonic Frontiers DLC came out, so it was a really exciting time for me to be a Sonic fan. Then I played the game and I thought it was great, but since then, my opinion has worsened. Dr. Eggman has traveled to the North Star Islands to turn its animals into badniks, and he wants to conquer the world. His new plan is to try and harness the power of a black dragon he discovered in an ancient mural. He has hired Fang the Sniper from Sonic Triple Trouble to aid him in his plans, and they are joined by Trip, an island inhabitant. Sonic and his friends travel to the island to stop the trio. During the adventure, we see Fang treat Trip like utter garbage when things aren't going his way. Amy discovers Trip crying by herself after one of these events and helps her out. Soon after, Fang's luck changes when he's able to steal the Chaos Emeralds because Knuckles is an idiot who just drops them on the ground to gloat. After Fang is defeated, he drops the emeralds and Trip tells him to stop, but Fang continues to be a jerk. In an awesome moment, Trip takes off her helmet to fight back and the emeralds gravitate towards her, turning her into a dragon who beats Fang as he tries to get away. Amy introduces Trip to everyone and they become friends. The group follows Eggman to space and defeats him. They return to the planet, happy that they've saved the North Star Islands. But we're not done yet, because Trip is a playable character with her own campaign, where she chases after an Egg Robo, like Knuckles' story in Sonic 3 and K. At the end, she fights Fang in his mech and stops him. Now with both campaigns cleared, the last story unlocks, where the Black Dragon appears, and Sonic goes super to fight it, with his friends helping him along the way. Eventually, Trip uses a gemstone to seal away the dragon, and now the day is saved. The plot is a bit more complicated, but it's still a simple story. What I really liked here were all the character interactions. I think Trip is adorable, and watching her become one of the good guys was great. It was also awesome to see Fang return, since I really like his character and how mean he is. Superstars plays very closely to Mania. The physics and characters handle basically the same as before, with some slight differences you get used to quickly. For example, I think Tails moves faster in the air, and Knuckles is a bit slower when he attaches to a wall. Amy is the most improved character in the game. Like Origins, she can still attack enemies on the ground and in the air with her hammer, but she now has access to a double jump that's great for platforming sections. Sonic feels identical to before, and I'm really grateful the drop dash is still a strong movement option, since I didn't like how it felt in Origins. I gotta give Arzest props for matching the great control of the previous games almost perfectly. Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, and Amy are the playable characters in this game, but they don't have their own playthroughs. When you beat an act in Superstars, you have the option to play the next level or return to a hub road, and it's here where you can swap between the 4 characters. I really enjoy this feature because it gives the game more variety. As someone who's been playing classic Sonic games for most of my life, I always thought it'd be cool to have one playthrough where I was able to use both Sonic and Knuckles, for example, and now I can do that. This also adds a level of strategy in who you play as. Sky Temple Zone has a difficult boss at the end that's easier with Tails because he can fly to hit Eggman from below. So before the stage, I can change to him in the hub road to give myself an easier time. And every character has their own exclusive act, so you'll get to play as all of them during the campaign. The main innovation in Superstars are the Emerald powers. You obtain these after getting a Chaos Emerald and can select them from a menu. These operate on a timer, and once it runs out, you can't use them again until you reach a checkpoint that replenishes them. The Emerald powers replace the Elemental Shields, but they're even better. One can slow down time, another creates a vine you can use to ascend, there's a water one that lets you breathe and swim underwater. They're all helpful. Easily the best ones are the first 2 you receive. Avatar spawns a bunch of clones that run around the screen and can break certain boss fights if you know the best time to use it. And Bullet turns your character into a fireball that basically has infinite jumps and can be fired in any direction. This one has a lot of utility for traversing stages and was easily the power I used the most. I like this new system because the powers are fun to use and the game is well designed around them. Sometimes in levels they even hint you should use this specific ability here to get a collectible. It also makes sense because we're always told how strong the Chaos Emeralds are, but they never help the player until you have all 7 of them and can activate your super form. The special stages are still hidden in every level, but now you can only obtain 1 emerald per zone. Every subsequent giant ring you find will be blue and won't reward you with an emerald. I'm fine with this change since it would be unbalanced to have the super forms and all the powers very early. And there are so many chances to obtain the emeralds in this game, plus with the new hub road, you can backtrack through levels if you don't have all the emeralds before you beat the game. By the way, I love how interconnected the small hub road is. It's cute. In the special stages, you chase after the Chaos Emerald by homing in on objects like blue spears and rings, and then swinging around the area. If you run out of time or fall into the abyss, you lose. I don't love these like the previous special stages, but I still had fun with them. What I don't like is it's hard to predict where the emerald is going to go, so I feel like I need to guess right to win. whereas in the past games whenever I lost, it was because I made a mistake. These are tough stages, but they're not as extreme as the ones in Mania's Encore mode, and at least you get rewarded with an emerald power for beating each of them. The levels were what I was most excited for in Superstars. The most recent Sonic games have all recycled past stages, and it was becoming a problem. But all the zones in Superstars are brand new, and they're pretty good. You got your speed, your multiple pathways, your exploration, it's all there. And I enjoy the new gimmicks in the zones, such as these vines in Speed Jungle you can grind on, going on a roller coaster in Pinball Carnival, or getting pixelized into animals in Cyber Station. My favorite zones are probably Bridge Island and Golden Capital. There are some I'm not the biggest fan of, like Sky Temple and Sang Sanctuary can be annoying, but overall these are fun to play through. The bonus stages are modeled after the Sonic 1 special stages. They control much better, but I'm still not a fan of these, so I mostly skip playing them. There are some new collectibles in the levels. You can get fruit that unlocks a fruit act in certain zones. Here you play a decent minigame, and beating it gives you the other collectible, the gold medals. You can find these everywhere, in the stages, certain enemies, getting 100 rings in an act, and the blue ring special stages. The medals can be used in a shop, where you customize a medal fighter. These are mainly for the battle mode, but you do fight the one you created at the end of Cyber Station, which is neat. The battle mode is fine. You play some minigames that are kinda like the game Fall Guys. I didn't have people to record with, so I just played by myself, and it was a decent distraction. But I'm not sure why you wouldn't play Mario Party instead. While we're on the topic, this game was sold on its multiplayer, where 4 people can play through the story mode together, like a modern 2D Mario game. I also couldn't try this, but I've heard it's not great, because it's difficult for the game to keep 4 fast characters on screen together the whole time. So the multiplayer and battle mode weren't for me, and that meant I wasn't invested in getting medals to customize my medal fighter. Oh well. The DLC in Superstars are skins for the playable characters, and I thought this was really cool. There's one where Sonic gets his original rabbit design, a shadow costume, and my personal favorite, the LEGO versions. I'm always happy when games let me customize my character, and I hope we see more of this in the future. Superstars uses 3D graphics that look great. Every character has been translated well into 3D, and the charm wasn't lost. I personally would have preferred one more game that looked like Mania, but I'm happy with what we got. I wish I could be more positive about the soundtrack. It's good but not amazing. I don't think the songs are that catchy, which is shocking to me because even bad Sonic games have stellar music. I've heard other people really like this soundtrack, so maybe my opinion is just an outlier, but that's how I felt. I'm sad to say that I have some significant complaints with this game we need to discuss. First of all, I ran into some technical problems when I was recording on my PC. Every level would randomly freeze for a bit, and nothing I tried in-game or with my graphics card could change this. I thought it might be my computer getting older, but I have much more than the recommended specs, and I can play more advanced games like Shadow Generations and Resident Evil 4 completely fine on it. So I decided to record the game on my PS5 instead, but even that version lags during the loading screens, and it was really distracting. Superstars has big issues with its pacing. The zones are noticeably lengthier, and I find myself getting tired by the end of them. I don't think this is a problem by itself, but what compounds the issue are the boss fights. They take so much longer to complete than before because they have lengthier animations, and you can only hit them at certain times. I understand this was probably changed, so you can't kill them in 10 seconds in the multiplayer, but it drags out the extended stages even more. At first I didn't mind these fights, because if you use the avatar or other emerald powers, you can still defeat some of them in like 30 seconds. But then there's fights like against Fang, which is a 2-minute long auto-scroller. If you die once, you have to replay the boring fight again, and it's incredibly tedious. What made matters worse was when I played Trip Story. This sucked. It's basically the hard mode, where the level design is slightly more annoying, and the bosses have much more health. So now even with optimal use of your emerald powers, the boss fights drag out the levels for longer than they have any right to. And it's the exact same game, except with Trip. And Trip's cool. She's a hybrid between Amy and Knuckles because she can double jump and spin up walls. But it's irritating to replay the same lengthy campaign again. If you're wondering why I didn't skip this mode I don't like, it's because you have to beat both campaigns to unlock the last story. It's the same problem as Sonic Heroes 19 years later. Come on guys, just give us the last story if you get all the Chaos Emeralds and beat the game. One campaign already takes 4 hours. You can sell short Sonic games for full price. It's fine if they're good. And making me play this mode just lowers my opinion of the overall game. Let's discuss the last levels. The boss fights got harder, like the one in Cyber Station, and the mini-boss in Frozen Base. Oh my god, this battle is awful a trip, because if you get hit once, you instantly lose. I like the Act 2 of this zone at least, where you're in a shoot 'em up in the Eggmobile. Egg Fortress is a very annoying final stage that gets even worse in the second act, where Eggman reverses time and you play the same level in reverse. Factor in Trip's story, and I played one act 4 times. This game is so lazy. The final battle against Eggman is pretty tough. You have to hit him 12 times, and he has a lot of different attacks that are really scary. Thankfully, I got good at this fight from my multiple playthroughs of this game in 2023, so I was able to win in my first attempt here. I cannot say the same for Trip's final boss against Fang. Oh my god, I hate this fight. It takes 6 whole minutes, and Fang has so many attacks that can instantly kill you. I was getting really upset playing this. I have so much footage of me repeatedly dying here, including at the tail end of the fight. It might be the single hardest boss battle I've ever played in a Sonic game. I think the devs got too excited when they removed lives from this game. I can't even imagine playing this fight if you're like 8 years old. I would probably rage quit. The supersonic battle in the last story is also irritating because the rings randomly spawn, so victory feels very luck dependent. And the fight takes 7 whole minutes for no reason except to waste my time. But with one last hit, the dragon goes down and it's over. So that was Sonic Superstars. As you can see, it's a game I don't view as highly as others we've discussed. I enjoyed my playthrough and the new ideas introduced, like being able to change characters in the Emerald powers. However, the pacing, boss fights, and Trip's recycled story being mandatory stopped the game from being great in my opinion. I think in 2023, I was too excited about a new classic Sonic game, so I overlooked the game's biggest flaws. It's unfortunate because I can see a lot of the effort and dedication here with the new zones, recreating the physics from Mania, Easter eggs, and the overall charm. It's still a good game, but with some small tweaks, it could have been really special. Sadly, Superstars was seen as a failure by Sega because of lackluster sales. I think there are multiple reasons why this game underperformed. Number 1, it came out the same week as Mario Wonder, which is another multiplayer platformer that appeals to the same audience as Superstars. Factor in Mario being the most popular gaming franchise, and Wonder being a phenomenal game, and it's easy to see why Superstars failed. Number 2, the price. This game probably should have been $40. I personally don't mind paying full price for Sonic games because I know I'll be replaying them multiple times. But I think it's difficult to convince people to buy a short 2D platformer for full price in the current gaming landscape. And number 3, they didn't bring back Bark the Polar Bear. What is wrong with you people? And with that, we are officially done with the classic Sonic series retrospective. I had a great time replaying these games and discussing why I enjoyed them so much. The awesome thing about these reviews is I'm able to understand my own feelings better by writing and talking about them. I don't think I could describe why I love Sonic CD so much before this retrospective. Classic Sonic is the main reason I'm a massive fan of the series, and I'm grateful he was revived and can still give us some excellent 2D platformers decades later. I'm not sure what's next for him after Superstars. It'll probably take a while to see him get his own game again, but when he does, I hope they learn from what worked and failed here. No matter what, I'll be there. Thanks for watching this video, and take care.